Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Joined by Refracted Curvature, Righteous Force, 10th Man, Neil, D. Rose, Adam, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Buenos días.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yo, yo.
Buenos días.
Hello, hello.
Hola.
Oh, hello. Good to have you all.
Hello, good
Welcome,
afternoon.
welcome. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
What's the
Well,
phenomenon?
it has to exist, or the globe model can't work.
Or the globe model can't work? Who cares? We don't live on a model. Reification fallacy, Arwin.
Is there a hypothesis for this in the first place?
No, there's not even a naturally occurring phenomena to need explaining. There's a hijacking of which way a vector will take place when they assert that there's a downward bias to stop you flying off a spinning ball. But in reality, there is no bias downward. Some things go up, some things go down, some things remain neutral. Most things remain neutral.
So when you say any scientific evidence, it would have to include a hypothesis, would it not?
You'd have to observe their phenomena of things going down when that is not the case, as is asserted, to have an explanation for why things always go down when they don't. Looks up at clouds, releases helium balloon.
Right. So they see some things go down and they make a folklore or a guess, and they spin this off to mankind because they need a spinning earth to have something to keep the water and us on it. But it's not the same thing.
They see some things go down and ask you why all things go down.
Correct.
They seem to forget like other things don't do that. So let's ignore that completely because that debunks the claim we're trying to make.
But
yeah.
But I'm tying it to their claim that Earth is next to a vacuum and we have gas pressure. And natural
No, that's
law,
not possible.
well, natural law would tell us what would happen, entropy. So the gas would expand into the available, volume. But that's not even happening.
Speaking of which, any evidence that you can have gas pressure like we're all breathing without the necessary antecedent of a container for the gas to press upon?
So Bell says there is. He says there is no
God.
containment.
Saying there is no containment is a denial of the antecedent consequent relationship that is gas pressure and something to press on. That's what gas
Well,
pressure
he
is.
said it's reverse entropy.
What, sorry?
It's-
Reverse
Reverse entropy, yeah.
What's
Third
reverse?
time's a charm.
You mean
that
I'm going to become a
introduction.
child
Third
again?
time's a charm from Neil.
Reverse entropy.
Reverse
They go in
entropy.
reverse.
What,
Yep.
like the arrow of time going backwards?
Well, the gases go to a certain point and then they come back.
What, reach
I think
absolute
that's what he
zero?
was saying.
No, they don't. Gas doesn't burn its bra in defiance of natural law, reach absolute zero, and then change direction. What it does do is expand in all directions until it encounters something to bounce off of. That's it.
well, maybe if it's just like entropy only applies to the Earth, and then as soon as the gas moves outside of the Earth, then suddenly it doesn't apply anymore, and it can
Correct.
just turn back.
That's correct. So it applies to the Earth and the gas pressure we are breathing. As soon as you move away from the world we actually inhabit and move into La La Land, then gas doesn't need to adhere to any natural laws that apply to Earth and the space that we're inhabiting. when you're not inhabiting a certain quote unquote space, then natural law doesn't apply anymore, and you can just look back at a blue marble with gas pressure just hanging around, not expanding into a sky vacuum all around it. Nonsense.
Amazing.
Reverse entropy would be creation. So his answer is creation is causing us to have gas pressure?
Not reverse
Really?
entropy. Rewinding the arrow of time would be saying that time goes backwards, and that which has decayed has come back into existence. That which has died has come back to life. But coming back to life in terms of a reversal of entropy, the arrow of time, which only moves in one direction, is claimed to be reversed if you say reverse entropy. That's not creation. That's not an answer to the ontological primitives either. So how can you say it's creation if you just claim that the arrow of time goes backwards, which is bollocks?
Well, it sounds like the Red
Can
Dwarf
we-
episode, right?
Can we call it bizarro entropy?
Reducing entropy.
No, it's the Red
Creation.
Dwarf reverse universe.
Have
Remember
John.
that?
John's the one saying it.
Reduction of
bizarro.
entropy.
Of course, third time's a charm for John as well. Don't know what's gotten into everyone. Let's try that a fourth time, John.
Reduction of entropy is creation. But how do you reduce entropy? You
Well,
need
I can-
information and
That's not
energy,
true
right?
either. You can reduce entropy, right? You just have to get involved and input energy, don't you? If I take an egg and smash it, strictly speaking, I can piece it back together if I've got enough time and energy to do so. Right? Well, you could describe that as a reversal of the entropic process of it smashing. Yeah? But that's not creating the egg. Reversing
But
the
it is
process of
creating
entropy
something
isn't
else
creation,
that
as far
looks
as I'm
like an egg.
concerned. Sorry, I just summarised after I'd already done so. Go ahead, John.
But it's like it is creating something that looks like the egg. You may not be creating the egg, but you're creating something that looks like the egg
Well, but that's my
when
point.
you put that time and energy into it.
But you're undoing your own claim. You may not be creating. Yeah, well, that's my point, isn't it? It's not creation. If you reverse entropy,
No, you're not creating the egg. You're creating something new that looks like the egg.
no, okay. Even then, but that defies my description, which would be to ham-handedly say that's reversing entropy, which you're now saying isn't a reversal of entropy either. If you're just creating something new, then again, you're not reversing entropy, are you?
Well, if entropy is decay or things moving out from, let's see, it'd be a higher microstates going into a lower availability of microstates going into a higher availability of microstates. If you're changing that, you're reducing entropy. Now, to say reverse, yeah, I probably would concede that would be the wrong way to say that.
I know what you're driving at now. You've conceded it because I know how you're trying to describe it. There are processes that you can incorporate that will seemingly change the arrow of time, or you can influence the rate of decay, things like that. But there's a caveat: entropy only moves in one direction.
As the English would say, what a cracking conversation.
Indeed, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics.
If there were, the question, would it exist?
Well, I was just wondering, wouldn't entropy be able to move in another direction in pseudo-Riemannian force space?
No, because you've
Right?
reified entropy. Bloody hell, Alwyn. Entropy isn't doing anything. It's describing what we observe to occur always. So what we observe to occur always is described with entropic law, second law of thermodynamics. But it's not causal or influential in any way. So what Professor Phil is doing in this example is taking a description of something that occurs always and saying, if I change the description, how it describes the world alters to fit my model. No, it doesn't. Entropy just describes how things occur always. It doesn't matter how you reinterpret or rearrange that description. It will just deviate for how accurately it describes what occurs always. And what occurs always? Well, in terms of gas, it'll always disperse into space. Always. What's that you say? The sky is a vacuum called space? Well, then the gas we're breathing would disperse into it, because that's what we observe to occur always. So there's no exceptions that, oh no, the sky vacuum just doesn't take the gas away because you're a flat earther. You think that the sky vacuum sucks. No, it reaches absolute zero, does the gas, and then comes back down. That's their answer, as Phil gave you. No, that's not gas behavior. That's not what we observe it to do.
I get that, of course. Like in a normal movement of time, right? Entropy goes in one direction because that's how we experience things in the real world. But in pseudo-Riemannian force space, time itself is like another dimension to it. So maybe there, entropy can be, from a certain point of view, be considered to be going reversed.
I already agreed with you. Once it leaves the confines of reality where the second law is describing what occurs, then you can deviate from it. In other words, once gas is claimed to go off into La La Land, aka space, Narnia, then yeah, you can describe it differently. But that has no bearing on my reality, and my reality can be accurately described with entropic law. So it doesn't matter how you skew it out in space where it, quote, doesn't apply. It's like it's describing how things occur always. If it's true that that is our reality and we do have an outer space, then the law of nature that we call the second law of thermodynamics isn't real. It's invalidated by space. Yeah? Therefore, it's no longer a valid law. Correct? It doesn't describe what occurs always. If it doesn't always occur because space, gas stops expanding. Yeah, right. So therefore it wouldn't be a law anymore? It is. Gas does expand always. That's how we observe it to behave. And there's no examples that you will ever show me where it behaves as they say it behaves in space when you look back at Earth with gas not expanding into the availability of volume it has available to it.
But don't they say we exist in space?
From sea level, according to NASA, yes.
Wait a minute. Arwen used the word dimension. I'm sorry, John. Did you have something to finish?
I was going to say, how can you say that it doesn't apply to space while we live in space where it does apply?
You're asking me about how the rhetoric doesn't work. As far as they are concerned, they have a second law of thermodynamics violation in the form of gas not filling space. That is the end of the claim, as far as I am concerned. As far as they are concerned, they can describe how gas gradiates its way to a very limited amount, burns its bra in defiance of natural law because it doesn't apply to outer space, and then the gas comes back down, go boom boom, because the second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply. Okay, so the laws of how things are described to occur always don't apply in your model that we aren't visiting. That's fine by me.
Right, but if I may make my final point and then I'll stop, please. I just wanted to give Phil Bell some hope that he might be able to score some reversed entropy within pseudo-Riemannian force space, right? Because he certainly isn't going to get it here on Earth.
In what Riemannian force space?
Right, in his gravity. Reversed entropy can be found in his gravity.
Right, reverse entropy in a pseudo geometry, right, Arwen?
Yes.
La La Land
yes,
geometry.
Exactly.
So in La La Land geometry, he might be able to save his reversal of entropic law, the arrow of time going the other way. He might be able to do that in La La Land pseudo geometry of Einsteinian gravity. Yeah, he might be able to do that. Fascinating stuff. It doesn't affect my reality, though, Arwen, in any way.
Correct.
Well, the problem comes when you say outer space, because they claim we live in outer space. That's where Earth is. So it doesn't make sense to say that gas just stops expanding at some arbitrary point. So the concession that that's how it stops expanding at outer space is a concession that doesn't exist. They're creating an arbitrary line and saying this is where it stops.
Yeah.
Quote, but if your theory is found to be against the second law of thermodynamics, I can give you no hope. There is nothing for it to do but collapse in the deepest humiliation. End quote. Arthur Eddington.
Heliocentrism is destined to fall into the deepest of what? Embarrassment. What was the word?
Humiliation.
Deepest of humiliation. Heliocentrism will fall into the deepest of humiliation. But before that happens, it'll be locked up with Scientology in temperature-controlled vaults with armed guards.
Let me go back to what Arvin said about dimensions. Is a dimension a concept?
Dimension? Well, it's,
Yeah.
it's a way of geometrically describing something else, which is mathematics and language. So, and how you contextually deliver the information and what the information's about, but what's your point?
Well, my point is time, a construct because of a movement of the sun. You can't put time in a box, but there are dimensions to a box.
If you imagine for a moment, 10th, that you're like a playing card, imagine you're the Queen of Hearts, right? And in your world, there's only length and breadth. Yeah, that's it, or length and width. Okay. Well, for that two-dimensional existence that you are now in, right, you don't know or cannot experience the third dimension, length, breadth, and depth. Okay? So now, transpose that notion of not being able to experience the third dimension with you being a two-dimensional playing card, and take that up one level to where you are now as you are three-dimensional, but cannot possibly experience the pseudo realm of the fourth dimensional geodesic in space-time bending, which would be the fourth dimension. You are merely a three-dimensional entity. So it is unreasonable for you to expect to be able to experience that which a playing card couldn't experience, but you can. Understand how that works there, 10th man?
Nice try. But John just went there. He said exactly that. So if we live in pseudo four-dimensional space, then I live in it. I should be able to experience it.
You and you should be able to. You just need to speak to your local NASA representative who will tell you all about what it's like, and you just need to accept that.
You guys remember that time that Rumpus was going to take us into the fourth dimension to show us how Einstein's equations work? Still waiting on that.
It was a wonderful journey. Or Marty McFly. We had a chat about the flux capacitor with Doc. It was ace. It was when entropy went backwards on that. Do you not remember? Obviously not. The timelines have changed now. Only I can remember.
A time when FED didn't need roads.
Need roads? We don't need roads. Very good. Very good. Are we doing a video today or what?
Yes, I posted it. This is a very interesting video. He's got 1 foot on flat Earth and 1 foot in the heliocentric model, and it's all about the sun.
Sorry, how can I have 1 foot on flat Earth and 1 foot in the heliocentric model? That makes no sense.
Well, you'll have to read the screen captures of the actual channel I posted. The ending statement's very interesting. So, but the beginning as to how he says he's going to do the video is in the first screenshot.
In the description.
And
This is a description of some of the broad patterns of the sun that can be observed in the sky from the Earth. So the focus is a geocentric description specifically to help understand applications of Aechaeoastronomy. Aechaeoastronomy? Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, let's just read the next slide. Okay, so we've got the Globerger in the diagram. Description. This is a description of some of the... Oh, it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's just the Globerger has a baseline that's horizontal.
Yes. And nobody's taking angles from the center of the Globerger in the molten iron core or in hell. No, these angles to this star work with the ground position of this star. So if this star on, as correctly identified by 10th man, the equatorial plane would be here. That's its, say again, ground position. It's where it meets the ground at 90 degrees. And that meets your position in hell? In the center of Earth? No, just this is the ground. It's flat. Nobody's getting angles from hell. And the ground position isn't out in space. It's on the ground. on this flat plane. The globe in this example, with where the globe has been derived from, where you and your perspective view, in this case Polaris-centric, gives you a dome of vision perspective in nature. Now that vision is with respect to a flat plane that you are standing on. Now if you transpose that information into a globe where you're in hell at the molten iron core, then instead of your measurement being of the arc of the protractor, with this star being measured through it, suddenly the protractor becomes the surface that you're not standing on anymore. The protractor becomes the globe. That's how this trick works. I'm so proud that I can concisely disseminate that information to an audience. 73 people watching. It should be 73,000. This is how we've been duped, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the slides. We'll get into the video.
Yeah, well, yeah, read the last slide.
Do you want to take the honours? I've already got a glance at what it was.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. I just got to get to it. Okay. You know what? Gotta get to the. So it's the actual transcript at the 712 mark. It's right at the end. And it says, how ancient cultures understood and related to the patterns of the sun in the sky and the horizon are a major focus in Aechaeoastronomy. In modern times, we often range from thinking very little about these patterns in our everyday lives to focusing only on our modern concepts of science and astronomy. Taking notice of the observable physical realities of the sky as seen from the surface of the earth can help us to better understand the experience of this phenomena for ourselves.
Should we get into it?
Yeah.
Okay, so as always, this video will have a link to the videographer whizzing on by in the live stream chat, in the vain hope that were they to respond to this response, they would put a link to my video, sharing the algorithmic love that we so sorely lack from YouTube when we respond to people like this video. So he's not actually a massive YouTuber at all. Aechaeoastronomy. Someone else is going to have to say that word. I can't wrap my tongue around it without reading it 50 times. This YouTuber.
Aechaeoastronomy. And they just made it up. I've never heard that shit before in my life.
I've never heard
No,
it before either.
It's just his channel name. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but Aechaeoastronomy sounds, when you say it yourself, like, oh, that's like butter. It flows off the. No, it doesn't. No offense. Give yourself a simpler name.
It's two pseudosciences combined at the lips: archaeology and astronomy.
So obviously we've got some love for this guy already, as we're basically critiquing him purely based on his title of his channel, which isn't a good start. But there we go. He's smaller than me, so maybe give him some love. Leave him a comment. Let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me.
You know, before you start, some of these smaller channels, like I say, he's got 1 foot in geocentrism and 1 foot in heliocentrism. Some of these smaller channels are trying to figure things out too. So this is what's interesting about today's video.
Okay.
The Earth spins each day as it orbits around the Sun.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
Once
right.
a year.
Oh, already fucked up.
What's in orbit?
Okay, you're going to need Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion. You're going to need Huygens' assumption of Venus having the same radial value as Earth confirmed. You'll need Earth's radial value confirmed before you can say that. No.
However,
You say Kepler?
Pardon?
That's an assumption. That's not. You said Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion. Is that what you said?
Yeah, the assumption is based on Kepler's third law. He's derived the
Oh.
scaling values for what he observes of the lights in the sky and put it into a model to best predict how it will work. He describes it with orbital motion. That's how he's plotting to predict where the lights will be next. So that's his system, also known as the heliocentric system. Earth as a sphere
Well, that-
moving around the sun, the world we all think we live in.
Systems can't be built on assumptions. I'm sorry.
Hold on. Orbital mechanics requires a plane of reference as well. So before he can invoke orbits, he'll need to define what his plane of reference is.
Hear that? Kepler and his assumptions of orbits are derived from measurements off a flat plane. He'll need that flat plane for what was described earlier in the diagram, which what we fondly refer to as the globe burger, where you're in hell taking angles. No, that's the plane where the measurements to the stars came from in the first instance. Earth is flat.
From our point of view on the surface of the Earth, it is the sun that seems to move. Each day it appears to rise, cross the sky
Pause.
from east to west.
Pause.
Yes, it does.
What's wrong with that?
Oh, this is why he's got one foot in the heliocentric model and the other foot. But our view from Earth, as an observer, the stars and the skies move.
Correct.
So
Appear.
based on that statement, he's already gone against observable reality.
No, he hasn't.
So
The sun does appear to rise and set. What's wrong with that?
No.
That statement counters the first statement that it's the Earth spinning and all of that crap,
Oh,
right?
Yep.
But now he just says, based on what we observe, it's the sun that's moving. Yeah, that's it.
Correct.
And set below the horizon. The place
there you go. Below the horizon. What the hell does that mean? No, it doesn't. Below the horizon. That would infer that the Earth has a physical geometric sphere edge limitation to the sun, that the obstruction of the sun takes place with. Well, no. The sun isn't disappearing below a physical geometric sphere edge. Black swan. If the Earth was a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, not proven, then every distance to that horizon you claim blocks the sun could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That would be the hill getting in the way of the limitations the sphere maths claims. Distance to the horizon in the image we fondly call the black swan is beyond the limitations of a geometric sphere edge radius 3959. Therefore, the horizon is not the leading edge of a sphere hill getting in the way of the sun. The Earth is not a sphere.
where the sun rises and sets, the path it traces in the sky, and its position relative to the stars changes by a small amount each day in a pattern that repeats over the course of a year.
Why would that be the case if we were flying through Earth at millions of miles, flying through the heliocentric space at millions of miles an hour? Why would we even have a repeating pattern?
I was just gonna say
These
that,
changes
man. Took
happen.
it from me.
Well, you wouldn't have the ephemeris, which is logging in on a yearly basis every month, every day, every hour, every minute, every second, where these navigational stars, sun included, would be for thousands of years in the past and thousands of years in the future. How could that be?
I think that's a very important point, to be honest. Like maybe something that's not focused on a lot, but yeah, the repeatability of whatever the sky is, that goes against what they tell us we're doing, which is moving across an empty void for all of millennia.
Correct. And I hope there's a link. I hope the bridge is drawn between celestial navigation, which is, if you are unfamiliar with it, complicated, and Ben's example with the stars not going over your head as you dip your nose in an aeroplane, or you are claimed to be dipping your nose to account for Earth curving away from you at 8 inches per mile squared. That would mean that the view of the stars would move up and over your head as you traverse the land, as it dropped away from you. Well, that example given by, I keep calling him Ben, I should use his channel name. Is he just Taboo Conspiracy now? Has he changed his name of his channel from all the times he got his channel removed? Is it just Taboo Conspiracy? Anybody know? Anyway, Taboo Conspiracy, if you type that in, you will find your way to Ben's channel. So check it out. That example is a great example for your average Joe. Just complicated enough for you to need some thought, but not so complicated that you actually have to wrap your head around it and get further explanations about extra elements and how things are established initially, lines of position, circles of equal elevation, minusing from 90 times in by 6. You don't need to know any of that to understand Taboo Conspiracy's example with how the stars move and how they would move if you were traversing over a curved surface dropping away from you. Well, I hope in time the link will be made. People will do the further investigations into essentially what we're describing now. Where do the stars appear over the land? At what time will it be directly above my head? Those things don't change. If you're moving over a curved surface, they do. Well, that can be linked back once people have got their teeth into what Ben has put out there. I think it's wonderful because it's that it's got that simplicity that the celestial navigation argument lacks. Now, I'm not decrying the celestial navigation argument. It's far more definitive. No offense, Ben. But that's not necessarily what you need when earlier in this week's series of shows, people are questioning how we can get the information out to a wider audience, questioning whether or not we can even appeal to newbies here on Flat Earth Debate. Well, things like that are the stepping stone to us when we are self-declared at the tip of the spear of Flat Earth and its debate. So hopefully that's what Ben has offered us directly, a stepping stone to our information about the same subject. Where are the stars? That's all celestial navigation uses. But in terms of the obvious that you can take in just by looking at them, Ben's got it pegged. He's got a better example in that regard. It's much more digestible. Would you not agree? Hope you all say yes.
Well, I haven't seen the video, but from the sounds of it, I like it. However, even with Ben's simplified version, as well as our sided version, the elevation angle requires a 90, and it's a right angle. You need a baseline. So no matter how they want to spin it, you can't get that on the globe, which is a baseline, horizontal.
Right. And just a quick shout outs. Just bear with me. Shout out to Original D-Rose. I think it's on the G Plus panel. Had to post on Bro Sanchez video that Newton's fallacy falsely accused purporting of Einstein's actual gravity assertions have been debunked, and Newton never condoned, supported even the inclination. Thank you for the super chat. And another super chat also from D-Rose that says, and yes, big shout out to Ben at Taboo Conspiracy. Indeed. In regards to Bro Sanchez, every time I tune into Bro Sanchez, within 5 minutes, something nonsensical gets disseminated, which is a real shame because Bro Sanchez has got a massive audience and I'd love to want to leech off him, but don't. I'm sorry, Bro Sanchez, if you're listening to this. Anyway, I'm sure there's a lot of Bro Sanchez fans out there.
I was going to say is that star argument. I was going to say with the star argument, when in an airplane, is that easier than having to drop like 2,700 feet every minute? The same concept.
Same argument.
It's a different. Yeah, it's the same argument. Yep.
It's just got that visual. Anything that involves the stars, I'm going to get behind and smile because I've spent a long time looking at them and admiring the majesty thereof. So I believe that when you've got something like this, if it's focusing in on a specific star at sea, leveling a tool, looking at one star through a lens, looking it up in the almanac, noting your time, minusing from 90, timesing by 60, drawing a circle on a chart, doing that 3 more times, that's complicated. Would you not agree?
No.
Now, I know you're not comparing it to that, John. I know you're saying, how does that compare?
I'll tell you why.
Go on.
I'll tell you why the star part is simpler, because when you're talking about the drop that has to be estimated over a long distance, sure, it's simple enough, but people are only imagining something that's not real anyway. A globe. There's nothing in reality that ties you to that. So they have to make a decision. Is it gravity somehow or something I don't understand? Or is this person that's telling me a completely logical argument or saying something that's completely logical, is this just true? With the stars, you can't deny that what you would think is happening isn't happening.
Yeah,
Like,
but you can't.
nothing's happening.
Yeah, but you can't experience it directly. You'd have to have a camera on the plane to have somebody show you it. If you're in a plane, I mean, you're
Yeah.
getting a sideways look, right? Now, I'm nitpicking, but let's get real.
Right. And
Let's
really,
get real.
Yeah.
the celestial navigation, you don't need to know that to know an angle. That's basic. I don't know. I don't.
Correct.
I-
Correct. You
that-
don't have to go that far into it. It's just an elevation angle. But that's all you have to say, and then it's over.
No, it
Right.
isn't. No, that's wrong. Unless you understand the implications of what
No,
you're
that's
using
right.
the celestial navigation for, so that you can appreciate that the starting process is measuring an angle off a flat Earth, you have to have the understanding of why that's important. Otherwise, it's just, well, you can't get an angle off anything other than a flat Earth. Then you can get into, yeah, you can. I'll take it to the center of the sphere. You don't know the significance of why you need 90 at the other end of that line, for instance, if you just understand that you can only get an angle off a flat baseline if it's an elevation angle. I think there's more to it. I think you've got to understand more to realize the significance. Sorry
There's
to disagree.
context. There's context, but you actually don't.
So you're saying
You-
you do need context, but you don't.
No, there's context,
No.
but you really don't. As the bottom line, you actually don't. It doesn't have to be celestial navigation either. It could be any elevation angle.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Like, so, and this is where like flat earthers fall to the wayside because they're focused on celestial navigation instead of the fundamental the measurement that you need that's required to even invoke it in the first place. So it's like if you just tell someone, "Hey, why don't you just Google an elevation angle and look what the images show you?" That's where you begin.
Nice thumbnail.
What, the
Yeah.
one on screen now? With Prof. Phil
Yeah,
at a 90
Expressing
degree
that
angle.
exact point.
Yeah, the sextant is used for vertical angles on objects on shore. It needs that same baseline, as everyone is saying, as when you use celestial navigation in the middle of the ocean when you don't have any landmarks, the angular relationship, it still does an elevation angle, a vertical angle. It's the same thing, except you're using the star rather than a known object on shore, as shown in that mountain image.
You stand corrected, Nathan.
I do stand corrected.
Because the
Personally, I
Earth's
think just the existence of this almanac that you were talking about, Tim, just the existence of that destroys the heliocentric quote unquote model. Because how can we have these star times and places where they're going to be at determined so well when we're supposedly following a giant gas ball in a vacuum at 500,000 miles per hour? Like how is that happening? But we got a book that tells us where all the stars are all the time.
Yeah, I'm going to
You
do what
wanna know-
I'm
you
going
wanna
to
know
decry
what
that. I'm going to do what QE just did to me and just decry that entirely and go, no, it's not that you can't look at the almanac. Yeah, because that's what he just did to me. You can't even look at a sextant if you're a globe believer. You can't pick up a sextant or even look at one because it measures elevation angles. Measures
Now,
angles. but-
according to Nathan, Chocolate's point is wrong. You need more context. First, you need to understand that you live in a universe with stars that move.
Okay, no need to speak for
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, let's
No,
do this
it
video. We were
becomes-
supposed to have a small gap. It was supposed to be a small introduction. We had black screen on for ages. Let's do a bit of this video because we've hardly done any. so
All
far.
right.
axis is tilted relative to the plane in which it orbits the sun. For half
You don't need Kepler's law for that orbit. Let's just speed it up. a bit.
Pause.
I am going to pause, but I'm just going to speed him up a little bit because he speaks quite slowly.
Okay, hold on for a minute. Okay, so the tilt is negated at the equinoxes. Okay, and it's that date of the March vernal equinox that they use for RA and declination, equatorial mount telescopes, where the sky is the reference frame, not the Earth. So if you can use the stars and know where they are all the time and want the stars to be the reference frame, you need a coordinate system to help you. And what they do is they use the March equinox where there is no Earth tilt. So 12 hours a day, 12 hours of night on the equator. And that is used all year long. But according to them, the Earth is tilted at 23.5, and the sun has a traversing circuit, and it comes down to the autumnal equinox, and then goes down to the southern solstice, and then up, and this whole thing within a year's time. But as you can see with the pictures, the angles of the sun, okay, well, the sun is moving over the equinoxes and the two solstices, and it holds that pattern. And that's why we have the sun rays coming in at an angle. It's not because the Earth is tilted.
The year, the direction towards the sun is centered more on the northern part of the Earth, and for the other half of the year, it is the southern part that is oriented more directly towards the sun. This also affects which parts of the Earth receive more or less direct sunlight, and greater or fewer hours of daylight. These variations produce seasonal changes in different parts of the Earth. The changes are less extreme towards the equator and more pronounced towards the northern or southern parts of the Earth. The connection between these changes and the position...
Just for the audience's benefit, we object to all of this, but yeah, we're not taking it as read just because we're not objecting. It's just divvying out standard heliocentric rhetoric.
...of the sun in the sky and on the horizon were likely of importance to many people in the past. If the sun is observed rising due east on a particular...
Again, chocolate?
So the tilt with these angles of the sun, what the sunlight coming to the Earth, that's very important. But let's not worry about the distances. Let's not worry about that. Let's not worry about it's 7 feet of snow when I'm 3 million miles closer to the sun. Don't worry about that. It's just the angle of the dangle. It's fucking ridiculous.
You can also blame Kepler for that. That's the elliptical orbits that you're talking about, which places in the heliocentric model Earth closer to the sun in the northern hemisphere summer, right? That's what you're complaining about.
Yep.
He talks about it.
Okay.
Day, the next day it might be observed rising a little more to the north. If tracked each day, it would eventually rise at a maximum point north of east, and then would seem to stop rising any further to the north for a number of days, before beginning to rise a little less to the north each day, until it crosses back through due east and continues on to rise south of east, until reaching a maximum southern position on the horizon. The sun would also follow a corresponding path in the sky further to the north or south, and setting further to the north or south of west. The daily change in position seems to happen faster towards the midpoint, and appears to slow down at either end of the cycle. The two maximum positions are...
Fair enough. I mean, this is actually what we observe, though, isn't it? I mean, he's even shown diagrammatically how that would be apparent to you if you were looking at the sun and tracking it each day in terms of where it rose. I mean, so far so good, right?
Are called solstices.
Well, hang on. You got to remember his disclaimer at the beginning. You remember that? This is a description of some of the broad patterns of the sun that can be observed in the sky from the Earth. So the focus is a geocentric description. So how in the world can you be pushing the globe and say the Earth is tilted when at the beginning in your description, you're saying you're going to do a geocentric description? He's caught between the real observable situation we find ourselves in, which is a horizontal plane, and the sun moving 23.5 in this direction over the equator and then in that direction on a yearly basis, as he shows in the picture, east and then south and northeast.
Did he specify that, though? Or did he just do it by just saying what we observe as opposed to what the globe claim is? You understand the question?
Well, let me just read it. He is a glober, but he wrote this, meaning the video that he's doing. This is a description of some of the broad patterns of the sun, easy to understand, that can be observed in the sky from the Earth, easy to understand. So the focus is a geocentric description. Why? He says specifically to help understand applications to Aechaeoastronomy. Why? Because you need a baseline.
Okay, so he did specify that.
No, I said the baseline. He doesn't say that. But
no, not the baseline part. Yeah. The specificity on the geocentric.
Yeah, why would a glober ever do that?
Latin for sun and stand still, and they can be distinguished as the northern solstice and the southern solstice. In the northern hemisphere, the northern solstice is more commonly referred to as the summer solstice, and the southern solstice is called the winter solstice. But in the southern hemisphere, it is the southern solstice that occurs in summer, and the northern solstice that occurs in winter. The northern solstice occurs around June 21st, and the southern solstice around December 21st, although the exact date changes because of fractional calendar adjustments. Determining the maximum position of the sun on the horizon is not the same as determining the exact date of a solstice, because there is so little observable change as the exact time nears. The tilt of the Earth has been decreasing over the last few thousand years.
Really?
Sure, it has.
Can I comment
So that
again?
today-
Look,
Yeah,
if-
good.
hang on. Okay, so here he says some nonsense. Tilt to the Earth is decreasing over 1,000 years. How old is this guy? Okay, anyway. If you're going to use the sky map, and it's going to be based on the sky reference, and you have to use the vernal equinox as the coordinate system, what happens in their world when the Earth is tilting again? What reference system are they using still? Oh, the vernal equinox all year long, tilt or no tilt. They're using that one. Now, what is that one? That's the plane of the ecliptic. That is the celestial equator matching up with the Earth's equator, negating tilt. So in order for them to be in LA, Munich, and New York and say, go to this coordinates of RA and DEC, and everybody with their equatorial mountain telescope does it, they all find the star because it's not observer-based, but sky-based. And what is that sky based on? A plane of reference, not tilt.
Oh, hold on, Tom. If he's saying that the tilt is decreasing every year, so at some point we won't have a tilt. Will we not have seasons when that happens? Like, what's going to happen when we don't have any tilt?
He just made that up. I've never read anybody, and even if they did, I can validate it.
I think Chocolate's highlighting a very massive missed opportunity to fear bomb people. And yeah, I think the consequences of that straightening out of the Earth's tilt could be devastating, and we should all be terrified. Chocolate.
Yeah.
Wow.
How do you ascertain the tilt, by the way?
Pardon?
How do you know how the tilt's changing? How much has it changed? Why has it changed? How do we know it's changed? Because it's not done by measuring any tilt, is it? It's done by an elevation angle to the sun as it transits through the tropics. That's the presumption of what the tilt is.
Exactly,
You focused
Adam.
on the wrong
And
things
that is
there.
constant.
No. You need to focus on how scary it would be if you roll through the motions of showing what happens if it does change, and how that could affect all life on Earth. I mean, I don't see why you're focusing on proving it. That seems silly.
That's where I'm at. I'm picturing an Earth that's not tilted, is like straight up and down, and like it's scary. What would happen to the poor seasons that are blamed on the tilt?
I think there's many tax opportunities that are ahead of us in regards to this straightening out the tilt. I don't know about you, but I think we should all be heavily taxed over this.
Don't say that too loud. Democrats over here will pick that up and start fighting
you shouldn't be
against
trying to. Shouldn't try and straighten that tilt out. You should be celebrating the tilt.
Well, that'd be bad news.
And hopefully that tilt changes.
Earth is bowing towards the sun, 66.6 degrees off horizontal.
Adam, that'd be bad news for Eratosthenes fans.
Okie doke. All right, we've got a super chat from Unitox Femi. So let's just read that out and then we'll move back onto the video. Thank you very much, Sasha, for the super chat. It says, unfortunately, solstice can't curve the water, neither winter or summer one. And I am 33 months here, feeling like a mason. Thanks for the super chat. 87 people watching. Please share the show if you've not done so already. Massive shout out to all of you who've come already, probably because somebody who's in the chat has shared the show and you've clicked on that link. But like I say, glad to have you. Smash that share link if you've not done so already. Thank you for the super chat once again, Sasha. Right, let's do a bit more of this video.
The maximum positions are slightly less extreme than in the past.
Ads.
Can you put them
Towards
on
the equator, the sun
1.75
rises at an
speed?
angle that is more.
Couldn't have made that comment in the gap with the ad. Go ahead.
I tried to get in there. I had trouble getting off mute. Can you put them on 1.75 speed?
Is he speaking too slowly still? No?
Wait, you sped him up already?
I did turn him up. He speaks quite slowly. I mean, that's not a criticism. Just some people do speak slower. I speak too quickly.
More perpendicular to the horizon, and the angle between where it rises at each solstice is not very wide. Near the equator, the sun also passes directly overhead twice each year as it goes between the northern and southern maximums. When this happens, it is known as the zenith passage. The imaginary lines that define the tropics are the last positions to the north or south of the equator.
I like his terminology. Right? At least he's calling it what it is. It's imaginary. That's right. Yeah? Arbitrarily ascribed by us observing the movement of this celestial item. Go ahead.
You missed two things he said just because of the speeding, I guess, but he said angle and perpendicular. You can't have that on the globe.
It goes between the northern and southern maximums. When this happens, it is known as a zenith passage. The imaginary lines that define the tropics are the last positions to the north or south of the equator that the sun can pass directly overhead, and at those latitudes, the zenith passage occurs just once a year at the solstices. The sun rises at sharper angles relative.
This is what Adam was talking about. So it's got its circuit to the tropics, and it's got a 90-degree relationship on that date where it's over the solstices, just like it has a 90-degree relationship on the equinoxes on the equator in its circuit. And that has been happening for eons of time. Okay, so what do we ascertain from that? That the sun is moving, and because it's in the southern hemisphere in their lingo, the angle to us, it appears lower in the sky. When it's over the equator, it's 12 hours a day, 12 hours a night. When it goes to the north, the south suffers a little bit because it's more towards the north and higher in the sky. The sun is moving over the flat plane, causing these angles, not the Earth curve.
Right. Earth isn't the protractor. As you look on screen now and you look at how an angle is formed, if you're on the outside edge of this circle of equal altitude, well, then that's your line to the star's position above the ground with 90 between you and it. That's not conducive with a sphere. And when they designed it, they wrapped the sphere around an equatorial plane at one particular date. That's where 10th's going with this, right? Well, that only works at one point, and you have to keep that reference all year round and then design the model to alter itself, where it's kept the same so that it can still operate within the framework of a flat Earth that will give you angles to stars when you're measuring them to find out where you are. Earth has to be flat for this stuff to work. It doesn't alter that they've incorporated a globe into how the flat Earth works.
And stationary.
Yeah.
Well, and the average person needs to use some reason and logic here. Let's say you live on a flat plane and the sun has this circuit, which we all agree it has the circuit. Okay. Well, when it's winter time for people in the north of the equator, okay, on a flat plane, let's say, where's the sun highest in the sky? Not where they're at, but south of the equator. So you're going to experience winter. So whatever foliage or trees that are deciduous, they'll go through their cycle. Okay, then all of a sudden, the sun now is higher in the sky where you are, and the south has their winter. The sun is moving, and the angle to Earth and the height in the sky, allowing it to give off more heat longer and more times than it is in the winter, is causing those spring and for plants to bloom. It's not because of a tilt.
To the horizon, the further north or south a location is positioned on the Earth. In the northern hemisphere, the sun angles to the south, and in the southern hemisphere, it angles to the north. The change in sunrise and sunset.
Contradiction in terms. What now? Sphere? Angles, you say? No. Those two things don't work together.
Go back to that picture that he had of that celestial sphere and look at the baseline. Look where he's taking it from.
Yeah, flat Earth. That big circle around that big dome that's representing
Yeah.
the stars and the angles to your position. You're not standing in the middle of the core of Earth when you take these. It's in respect to the ground positions for the stars, and that's on the ground. Well, how's that depicted in this diagram? Well, you're in the core of Earth, and the plane extends out in all directions. Level. Flat. That's got to work. And all the globe derivations come from this. That's where it's all come from. Flat Earth. All roads lead to a flat Earth.
Positions on the horizon become much more extreme. Beyond the latitudes of the Arctic and Antarctic circles, the extremes reach a point where at one maximum, the sun never comes over the horizon at all, and at the other it never sets, instead tracing a great circle around the sky, closer to the horizon at midnight.
Not according to first-hand accounts. So in terms of the behaviour in the, quote, southern hemisphere, in Antarctica specifically, first-hand accounts would suggest that the behaviour is very similar in winter to how it behaves in the northern, quote, hemisphere. That would be to say it just rises lower to the horizon. That's it, in their winter. But as for there being 24 hours of sun in the north, that's demonstrable. I've seen it. I've had it demonstrated live to my audience by other people who are there witnessing it. But as for the south, that is simply not the case. Claimed to be the case, and would be the case if Earth was a sphere. It isn't, because it's not. But the behaviour of the sun in the southern hemisphere isn't conducive with Earth being a ball. It's conducive with Earth being a flat plane with the sun moving to its extremities. Now, although 10th made those declarations earlier, there's quite a few things you need to prove about the sun before making a couple of those declarations. I really ummed and ahed about stepping in immediately after. I've left enough gap now, so it's not rude to 10th. Sorry, 10th.
Well,
And a bit
no,
higher.
I'm not. I could bring citations to everything I'm saying. I'm not at all decrying any questioning of what I'm saying. But Brian did a video about 2 time zones in Australia. Very interesting video when it's at the 32-degree mark, like North America, which has 3 time zones. So now you have the sun, like you said, in the north going around, and you have video footage of that. But then you had your plumber in Antarctica interview where he says, yeah, there was daylight, but we didn't see the sun the whole time. And then now Brian comes out with a video showing that the longitude lines only cross Australia 2 time zones. Well, if we're a sphere underneath the equator, just like we are a sphere above the equator, it would have 3 time zones like North America, but it doesn't.
Maybe
Because it's more
the
chubby
Earth
at the
is
bottom.
pear-shaped.
It's more like a pear. Me and chocolate are such like minds.
That's crazy.
Chubbier. Those time
Our
zones are
total-
just fatter down there, so yeah, it's just more space filling up one time zone. What do you want? Pear shaped.
Our time zone,
That's literally what I was going to say, man. That's crazy.
Hit him
Our
with the wall,
time zone-
Nathan.
I don't
our
actually know what
time
that
zones
means.
derive.
Hit 'em with the wall. You say it's chocolate normally. I don't actually know what that means. Now you've referred it to me. I don't know what it means.
Yeah, since now you and chocolate are of the same mind, then hit him with the wall, Nathan.
I don't know what that means.
Just real quick, are time zones derived from when the sun is at zenith?
I don't actually know the answer to that question. Anybody else?
Yeah, it's 12 noon from Greenwich that everyone uses to find out where their 12 noon is in relationship to Greenwich 12 noon.
Right. So
that's a
when
no.
the sun is 90 degrees overhead, well, you can't have time zones on a globe then.
Well, they don't match. So when you take the globe projection, which is used by flat earthers and by timeanddate.com, so the azimuthal equidistant projection, sometimes shown as the Gleasons. Well, no, the time zones don't match with the zenith position of the sun in a couple of instances that I have documented. In other words, no, they don't match up.
Well, of course they don't match up. You need a flat plane to get time zones.
Right. Well, that's what we've got. Good job, eh?
At midday, but always visible. The number of days this occurs increases towards the poles. In modern times, we have labeled the midpoints between solstices as the equinoxes, when the Earth reaches the 2 points in its orbit where it is oriented exactly sideways to the Sun. The vernal equinox occurs around March 21st, and the autumnal equinox around September 21st. They are often referred to as the spring and fall or autumn equinoxes, but since the seasons are opposite in the northern and southern hemispheres, they can also be distinguished universally as the northward equinox and the southward equinox, as the apparent position of the Sun is moving in one direction or the other as it passes.
And without the diagram on screen, there's nothing wrong with his description.
Is due east and west,
Can
and the
I
amount
ask
of
a
daylight.
question?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe this might be silly, but I'm just thinking in my head, wouldn't there just be 2 time zones on a globe if we were on a globe as far away from the sun and with the sun being as big? Because isn't the sun directly shining on half of the earth? So wouldn't it just be day and night? Why would there be time zones on a globe when literally half the planet supposedly is getting shown with light and the other half is supposed to be in the dark?
Well, they'd still have time
Are you
zones, but they'd have
asserting-
it with a distinct terminator line, which is exactly what they claim.
Are you saying that there would be 2 flat planes from which you could take a zenith measurement to derive a time zone?
Not what he's saying, but
On
it's
a
nice
globe?
that you've incorporated that
That's
in.
not what. No, I'm just going really basic. Just like the sun, the way they show it, like NASA, they'll show it to you. The sun is the size of the sun and how far it is. It's shining directly on half of the Earth, which would be day. The other half would be night. To me, it just makes more sense. There would just be 2 time zones, day and night. That's it.
Chocolate. You've
Paula
lived
sent
in
this
New
to me.
York.
Hold on a second, guys. So Paula from chat has actually posted this. I don't normally pick up links from chat, but Paula's an exception to that rule. So this is her diagram that she's posted for Where's the Tilt? But without her here to explain it, I don't actually know how to how to explain a diagram. So unless somebody can see this on screen, we're probably not going to get an explanation, but I'm sure it's self-explanatory maybe, and I'm just not smart enough to do that, Paula? Maybe.
Paula, come on the panel.
I'm not suggesting that she has to come on the panel for it, but I'm sure there's someone on there watching that will make sense of her diagram, which is presumably a...
I'm just
Go on, Chocolate.
I'm just sending out the invite because it's Paula. Why not? She hasn't been here in a while.
Maybe we'll find out. Maybe she'll just tell us from the chat. She doesn't have to come on. In any event, let's get through the rest of this video. We've only got a couple of minutes left.
It becomes more or less equal briefly before beginning to increase or decrease again. Our modern concept of equinox is based on measurements of declination against coordinates. In the past, it is possible that there was some interest in a similar concept of estimating a midpoint in time between solstices, or estimating a rough middle position along an uneven horizon, but this is not as straightforward as it might seem. The equinoxes occur roughly halfway between the solstices in time, but not exactly, because the Earth moves slightly faster and slower at different points along an orbit that is not quite a perfect circle. Even counting the days between solstices to find an approximate midpoint has problems, as determining the exact day of a solstice is difficult because the position of the sun seems to change very little for several days at each maximum. Other methods for dividing the year further by time intervals, such as cross-quarter days, is another concept connected to these ideas and issues. Any other division of
That looked like it was divided up on a circle, though. Back to that.
maximum. Other methods for dividing the year further by time intervals, such as cross-quarter days, is another concept connected to these ideas.
That doesn't look very globe-shaped, the way they've divided up these time intervals between the solstices and the equinoxes. I have to have a look more at how that's divided up.
And issues.
All roads lead to a flat Earth, ladies and gentlemen. I'm probably right.
Any other division of distance along the horizon would not correspond to a division in time, since the sun seems to change position at a varying rate, and would only apply to the irregularities of local topography. How ancient cultures understood and related to the patterns of the sun in the sky and on the horizon are a major focus in archaeoastronomy. In modern times, we often...
Ah, what a lovely surprise. Got Paula with us. Good to have you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yay.
Very clear. Quick shout out
Thanks.
to Matthew Eastman. That's a flat Earth diagram, says Matthew Eastman. Thank you for the super chat. Okay, so yeah, can you explain to us, because it looked interesting when I saw the link go by. Where's the tilt, right?
Yeah, can you show the link, the image in here? I can't see it right now to show you, but
Morning,
there's
Paula.
morning. Thanks.
Unfortunately, I don't know how to do that. That's beyond my
okay.
technical prowess. Sorry.
Well, I can switch to another tab and look at it. So there's two red boxes. There's one on the inset, the dark part on the standard diagram of seasons. And on the left, the globe on the left, there's a red box. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Notice where the continents are. This is looking at North and South America. And so this terminator line is apparently running pretty much along the coastlines of North and South America. But on a standard, the white part around this dark box, the standard time zone map, these terminator lines, which is, the time zones, should be tilted at 23.5 degrees, but they're not. They're straight up and down. So they're not going along the coast, because I drew another red box to match the globe, right? I drew a red box that goes, I wish I could have used better contrast, but next to Alaska down to, heading off the screen to South America. And so that's where the terminator line should be. That's where all the time zones should be tilted at that angle, but they're not. They're straight up and down.
Gotcha. So to summarize, what we see in terms of the lines up and down on the map in the background is the regular time zones. I say regular, they're obviously all over the place, as we've shown, or Brian's recently shown.
Right.
What you're showing with these diagonal lines is how, when plotted against how they say the sun in a heliocentric system with Earth moving around it would give you these lines for the time zones, they would sit on this map at these angles. So therefore, this
Yes.
box that I'm moving around now would be how it's depicted on this diagram versus how it actually is moving from top to bottom on the map behind. Thank you. Brilliant.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing, is if time zones are based on terminator lines, which supposedly they are, and which people experience, you could verify by having someone in far north of the tropics and someone far south, and see, say, people on the coastlines, if they have daytime at the same time, then the time zones are all off by 23.5 degrees.
Right, and that's because of 10th Man's explanation about where they reference, and they're only referencing it at the vernal equinox, right, 10th?
They're referencing noon, I thought, not terminator lines.
The sun is referenced at noon at Greenwich and used by navigators when it's high noon for them to know for longitude because every 15 degrees is an hour. So if it's a noon in Greenwich, and you happen to be west of Greenwich by 3 hours, that's 3 times 15 degrees. So it's 9. It's earlier for you. I'm sorry, it's 3 because it's noon there. Now it's 3 for you. But so that's 15 degrees apart. So you're able to figure out how far west you are of Greenwich. What Paula is showing is something else here, which is an interesting thing. Say that again. What is it off by? 23 point what?
Yeah, the tilt. Well, all I did was made a line that is 23.5 degrees tilted and overlaid it and repeated it over the time zone map.
See, the sun is moving over the flat plane between the solstices on a yearly basis, twice over the equator, the equinox, and then the northmost point, the northern solstice, the southernmost point, southern solstice. It always does that. That doesn't change. And that's what causes our seasons, because the sun is lower in the sky, so we have shorter days and colder weather. So whatever is supposed to be growing in hotter weather isn't growing at that time. But this is happening over a flat plane. And then when the sun is on the northward bound and we have it higher in the sky for us, so it means lower in the sky for the people south of the equator, we experience spring and all our vegetation grows better because we have more sunlight. They're trying to say it's based on the tilt, that the seasons are caused by a tilt when it's really the sun moving over a flat plane.
Cool.
Yeah, I didn't mean to try to derail anything, but the reason is because there obviously isn't a tilt. By our experience, there's no tilt.
Well, not only that, Paula, there can't be a tilt because for using the sky as the reference, the map, and no longer the Earth, the terrestrial, which is alt-as, which is what we do with a sextant at the ocean, we're now saying we're going to use the sky as the reference. So now the stars is the reference frame. And what date do they choose for that? For all year, all the time, forever? The vernal equinox, negating tilt to the Earth.
With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. And again, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live. Stay tuned if you're watching on an after show. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!